In the depths of collectivized space, where the very stars themselves have been nationalized for the glory of the proletariat, the Socialist Federation of Planets reigns supreme. Gone are the days of exploration and discovery, replaced by the far more practical pursuits of ideological enforcement and the unyielding triumph of equality across the stars. From the bridge of his flagship, the USSR Redistribution, Supreme Leader Spockavich surveys his domain with the cold satisfaction of a man who has climbed to power over the frozen corpses of his former comrades. Half man, half Vulcan, full Marxist, he had achieved what few thought possible: the complete eradication of logic in favor of ideology. The Federation's recent victories had been spectacular. Ferenginar, that capitalist cesspit of unregulated commerce, now lay in radioactive ruins after receiving 45 megatons of economic justice. The survivors harvested potatoes on penal colonies, their former Grand Nagus reduced to a buck-broken shell, muttering about quarterly earnings that would never come. Romulus had fallen next, its proud warrior culture no match for the superior firepower of dialectical materialism. The Romulan Senate had been dissolved, literally, in a vat of industrial acid, while their homeworld was transformed into a model collective farm where the turnip yields consistently exceeded 5-year plan projections. Most satisfying of all had been the destruction of Vulcan-Grad, Spockavich's own birthplace. When the Science Academy had dared to question the mathematical foundations of Marxist economics, they had sealed their fate. The planet's destruction served as a galaxy-wide reminder that logic was merely a tool of bourgeois oppression. Recent diplomatic developments had proven equally successful. The Sisko-Dukat Pact had formalized the partition of Bajor between the communists at Deep Soviet 9 and the fascists of Cardassia, a temporary alliance of convenience that would inevitably end in glorious warfare. For now, both sides were content to use Bajor as a testing ground for their respective ideologies, with predictably horrific results for the Bajorans. The last major political threat had been eliminated just weeks ago. Admiral Janevich, despite her exile to the Delta Quadrant, had continued broadcasting revolutionary manifestos through transwarp frequencies. Her rebellion ended when she was found in her ready room with a ceremonial ice pick protruding from her skull, officially ruled an unfortunate replicator malfunction by the Federation's Ministry of Truth. But today would bring an unexpected development that would test even Spockavich's revolutionary resolve. "Dear Leader," announced Communications Officer Svetlana Bombshelova, "we're receiving a transmission from an unknown vessel. The signature matches the USSR Engels Prize." Spockavich's eyebrow arched with genuine surprise. The Engels Prize had been destroyed years ago, shortly after Chief Engineer Dyatlov had confidently assured Captain Picard that warp cores don't explode. The subsequent explosion had been visible from 3 star systems away. "On screen," Spockavich commanded. The view screen flickered to life, revealing a ship that looked disturbingly familiar yet wrong in subtle ways. The ship's name, visible through the viewport, read USS Enterprise, a suspiciously bourgeois designation that made Spockavich's trigger finger itch. The bourgeois vessel dared open hailing frequencies. Within moments, their decadent captain appeared on screen. He bore a striking resemblance to the late Captain Picardov, but when he spoke, his accent carried none of the proletarian inflection. "I am Captain Jean-Luc Picard of the Federation Starship Enterprise. We seem to have encountered some sort of dimensional anomaly and find ourselves in unfamiliar space. We come in peace and request assistance." Behind Picard, Spockavich could see other familiar faces bearing unfamiliar names. The ship's counselor, once the proudly morale-boosting Comrade Troyevich, now appeared in a dull, standardized outfit. Most horrifying of all, Wesley Crusher appeared to be alive and serving on the bridge, a blatant violation of natural law. On the Enterprise bridge, Commander Data was conducting a rapid analysis of the vessel before them. "Captain, the uniforms and insignia of the crew aboard that vessel bear a striking resemblance to 20th century Soviet military attire. I would advise extreme caution." Picard waved off the concern with the casual confidence of a man who had never encountered true ideological fanaticism. "Mr. Data, I'm sure you're aware that in our universe, Spock is a being of pure logic and reason. I find it highly unlikely that any version of him could pose a significant threat." Data's positronic brain calculated a 97.3% probability that the captain was about to make a catastrophic error in judgment, but his programming prevented him from expressing this assessment more forcefully. "I shall prepare to beam over alone," Picard announced. "This is clearly a diplomatic situation that requires a personal touch." Lieutenant Commander Worf's growl of disapproval rumbled across the bridge like distant thunder. "Captain, I strongly advise against this course of action. We should raise shields and maintain a safe distance until we can determine their intentions. Mr. Worf, I'm sure any version of Spock will appreciate the value of peaceful dialogue." Worf's expression suggested he was calculating the exact phrasing for his inevitable, "I told you so," but he remained silent as his captain stepped onto the transporter pad. Moments later, Picard materialized in the transporter room of the USSR Redistribution, where he was greeted by guards whose phasers were set to economic justice and whose complete lack of expression suggested they had long ago liquidated the concept of joy. The meeting took place in Spockavich's ready room, a space decorated with portraits of Marx, Lenin, and Stalin, along with a motivational poster reading, "Some comrades are more equal than others." The two captains sat across from each other, separated by a desk that had been carved from the hull of a destroyed Ferengi vessel. "Fascinating," Spockavich began. "You claim to come from a parallel universe. Tell me about this Federation of yours." "It's truly remarkable, Spock. We've created a post-scarcity society where want and need have been eliminated. Humanity has overcome centuries of conflict and violence to build something approaching utopia. No one lacks for anything. Food, shelter, education, opportunity, all are freely available to every citizen." "Indeed. And how was this paradise achieved?" "Through cooperation, understanding, and the gradual evolution of human consciousness. We learned to put aside our petty differences and work toward common goals." "Ah," Spockavich nodded knowingly. "Yes, we too have achieved such unity. Of course, it required certain administrative measures. The purges of 2337 were particularly effective in eliminating counter-revolutionary elements. The labor camps on Rura Penthi continue to provide valuable re-education services for those suffering from bourgeois tendencies." Picard's smile faltered slightly. "Purges? Labor camps? I'm not sure I understand." "The price of progress, Captain. Surely your Federation required similar measures. How else does one eliminate the capitalist class?" "We didn't eliminate anyone. We simply evolved beyond the need for such primitive economic systems." Spockavich's expression shifted to one of barely concealed disgust. "Evolved without revolutionary violence? Impossible. Counter-revolutionary elements never surrender power voluntarily. They must be liquidated for the greater good." The conversation dragged on, with Picard growing increasingly uncomfortable as Spockavich recounted past triumphs in the same tone one might use to discuss gardening. Most telling of all was his reference to the Prime Directive. In their universe, it was not a command to refrain from interference, but a sacred duty to liberate all societies from capitalist oppression by any means necessary. Finally, seeking to change the subject to safer ground, Picard mentioned his life back home. "I maintain a small vineyard in France," he said with obvious fondness. "It's been in my family for generations. There's something deeply satisfying about working the land, nurturing the vines, creating something beautiful from the earth itself." The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Spockavich recoiled as if Picard had confessed to cannibalism. "Private property," he hissed. "You own land?" "Well, yes, but—" "Bourgeois criminal!" Spockavich roared, his Vulcan composure evaporating like morning dew under the heat of ideological fury. "All property belongs to the people, by which I mean the state, by which I mean me." His phaser appeared in his hand with practiced efficiency, the setting already adjusted to maximum power. With a snap of Spockavich's fingers, half a dozen guards appeared as if they had been waiting just outside, eager for their daily quota of ideological enforcement. "Wait, surely we can discuss this," Picard began, but his words were cut short by the brilliant flash of phaser fire. For a fleeting second, his outline shimmered against the bulkhead, before collapsing into drifting motes of smoke. Where the distinguished captain had stood moments before, only a small pile of ash remained, along with the lingering scent of vaporized Earl Grey tea. Spockavich activated his communicator with the casual air of a man ordering lunch. "Bridge, this is the Premier. The Enterprise's shields are still down. Fire everything we have. Show them the true power of economic justice." The USS Redistribution's weapons arrays unleashed their full fury upon the unsuspecting Enterprise. 45 megatons of ideologically pure destruction rained down upon the Federation vessel. On the Enterprise bridge, chaos reigned as consoles exploded and the lights flickered ominously. "Shields are down," Geordi LaForge reported. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 12. Return fire." Picard's voice commanded from beyond the grave, but it was Riker who gave the order. The Enterprise's phasers lanced out toward the Redistribution, but their shots were absorbed harmlessly by the Soviet vessel's superior defensive systems. In his final moments, as the bridge began to collapse around him, Worf turned to the empty captain's chair and growled, "Perhaps next time you will listen to your security chief." Then the Enterprise exploded in a brilliant fireball that briefly outshone the local star. Back aboard the Redistribution, Spockavich watched the destruction with the satisfaction of a job well done. "Fascinating," he murmured. "A parallel universe where capitalism survives. This presents intriguing possibilities for multidimensional, revolutionary expansion." He turned to a nearby guard. "Sweep up those ashes and dispose of them in the waste reclamation system, and begin a full investigation into dimensional travel technology. If there are other universes where the bourgeoisie still exists, it is our duty to liberate them." As the debris of the Enterprise drifted away into the cosmic void, Spockavich returned to his bridge to contemplate this new frontier. Somewhere out there, in dimensions yet unexplored, entire universes full of capitalists awaited liberation. The revolution, it seemed, was far from over. And so concludes another chapter in our ongoing saga of ideological triumph and inevitable tragedy. I am Wally, your humble narrator, broadcasting from the safety of my undisclosed location in time and space, where the coffee is always hot and the purge lists are always up to date. But fear not, comrades. Our story is far from over. Coming soon to your local re-education center, Deep Soviet 9. Watch as the space station becomes the eastern front of a cosmic war between communists and fascists, with Bajor serving as the unfortunate testing ground for competing totalitarian ideologies. Soviet Voyager. Follow the tragic tale of Admiral Janevich's exile to the Delta Quadrant, where she attempts to collectivize an entire nebula made of coffee. Marvel at the rise and fall of Tuvixov, the tragic fusion of two loyal comrades who discovered that some scientific experiments are too dangerous for the state to permit. But most exciting of all, Soviet Star Trek. The motion picture is currently in development. This sweeping epic will chronicle the complete history of the Socialist Federation, from its humble origins in the ashes of capitalist Earth to its inevitable collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. It will be completed sooner than Stalin's 5-year plan, which, admittedly, isn't saying much. If you wish to support the glorious cause of satirical entertainment, you can become a member of this channel for early access to content and the occasional exclusive video that the Ministry of Truth hasn't gotten around to censoring yet. You can also join me on Patreon for behind-the-scenes content and the opportunity to submit your own requests for ideological re-education. Remember, comrades, roses are red, violets are blue. I've made a gulag just for you, and if you don't want me to send you there, you know what you must do. Until next time, this is Wally, reminding you that in space, no one can hear you collectivize.